Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I am here to review the Master Palette by Mario from Anastasia Beverly Hills. Now this has been such a hyped up eyeshadow palette and I am actually quite lucky to get my hands on it. I did actually make it on time to order it from the Anastasia Beverly Hills website when it was first released, but due to some sort of technicality they rejected my order. And I was completely distraught because by the time I got an email several days later informing me that my order hadn't gone through, they had already sold out. But the palette did go on to become available on the Sephora.com website, and I managed to get my lovely cousin from the States to order it for me, and then she ended up gifting it to me for my birthday, which I am so grateful for. So thank you very much, Jennifer. So if you don't know who Mario is, I don't know if it's Mario or Mario, but I'm just going to go with Mario. Mario is Mario Dedivanovic. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, or I've just completely butchered that. He's better known as Kim Kardashian West's makeup artist. And whilst I'm not really fussed about the Kardashians, I have to give credit to their makeup, or rather their makeup artist, because their makeup is always on point, always so flawless, all 5 of them. So obviously when Kim Kardashian West's makeup artist collaborated with Anastasia Beverly Hills, it was always going to be a bestseller. So without too much waffling on now, I'm going to go straight into the palette. So this is a 12 pan eyeshadow palette, and at an initial glance you might think, oh, it's just another neutral palette. And whilst for the most part it is just another neutral palette, I don't think it's as boring as your average neutral palette. As well as there being your neutral tones, there's also a few kind of beautiful dual tone shades, such as this blue in Claudia and this kind of mossy green in Bronx. It's predominantly a metallic shimmer palette. There's only 3 mattes versus 9 metallic shimmer shades, but I think the 3 mattes that they've got in this palette is just perfect, because you've got 2 kind of transition shades. You've got one that's a bit more cooler, one that's slightly more warmer, and then you've got your dark brown for creating a bit more definition and for creating smoky eyes as well. All of the names of the shadows are of women and places who have influenced Mario's career over the years. So I'm just going to go ahead and swatch each of the eyeshadows so you get a better idea of what each of the individual shades look like. So the first shade that we have in the palette is called Hollywood, and Hollywood is the lightest of the shadows, and it is just kind of like a pale yellow gold. It is a very kind of a subtle satin finish metallic. It doesn't have that really intense metallic frostiness to it, nor does it have any kind of specks of glitter or shimmer or anything like that. It's really kind of just a soft satin finish, and it will just make for a really kind of subtle lid shade or a nice kind of highlight shade. If you've never had the experience of swatching or playing around with any of the Anastasia Beverly Hills eyeshadow, let me tell you one thing: they are incredible. They are really highly pigmented. It's so soft that you do get some product kick up when you go and dip your brush into the pan, but that is not really a deal breaker for me, and I don't really have any problems when it comes to applying eyeshadow in terms of fallout. But if in doubt, I'd always kind of tap off the excess on my brush before I go to apply it on the eye. But it just goes to show how incredibly soft the shadows are, so it makes them just really easy to blend, incredibly easy to work with, and yeah, just a great experience. So moving on to the next shade, which is called NYC. This is a really deep chocolatey reddish metallic brown shade. It's a very, very rich and intensely pigmented. This isn't really a unique kind of shade. I mean, a lot of palettes you will find something quite similar, but nonetheless it is a very beautiful rich brown if you're after that really nice warm chocolatey hue. And this is probably one of the more darker shades from the palette, so great for creating a more smoky look with. And then moving on to the third shade along, this one is called Kim, and this is a kind of warm peachy brown shade with a hint of copper to it, and it's probably one of my favorite shades from the palette. It's a beautiful, easy to wear everyday kind of shade that you can just throw on your lid, or you can just kind of team it with a bit more of a deeper color to create a bit more of a smoky eye out of it. It's again a bit more subtle. It doesn't have that intense metallic sheen to it, nor does it have any shimmer to it. It's more of a subtle satin finish, so definitely appropriate for everyday kind of wear. Then moving along, we have the shade called Muse, and this is more of a rich reddish brown, a lot more red compared to NYC, and a bit more lighter. It kind of reminds me of MAC Antiqued, and this shade compared to like Kim or Hollywood has a bit more of a metallic sheen to it. It's definitely a bit more intense. This is the sort of shade that would work incredible on green eyes and brown eyes actually, and it's definitely another one of my favorite shades from this palette, and it's definitely a shade that's a bit more than your average neutral. Then second to last in the first row, we've got this shade called Marina, and in the pan it actually looks kind of like a rose gold, but when you swatch it, it has kind of quite an intense white pearlescent sheen running through it. If you like the metallic sheens and you like that kind of strong frostiness to your eyeshadows, then you'll definitely love this shade. It was definitely one of the first shades I swatched in this palette. Probably a little bit too frosty for my liking. I mean, I still like it, but I probably liked the shade more in the pan than I do upon swatching. Because this shade has such an intense white pearlescent sheen running through it, it would look really great placed on the center of the eyelid where the light will catch it and it will just kind of reflect beautifully. This shade definitely has much more of an intense metallic factor compared to all the other shades we've just swatched so far. Then finally, the last shade in the top row is called Claudia, and this is your kind of pop-up color, if you like, more of like a jewel tone shade, but not kind of too intense. It's still kind of very wearable. It's not kind of an intense electric blue, for example. This is quite muted. It's more of a navy teal kind of shade, and this would look incredible in a cool tone smoky eye kind of look. It's not as intense as Marina in terms of the amount of pearlescent sheen in it, but it's definitely got that metallic finish to it. And then moving along to our bottom row, and the first shade is the first of the three mattes in the palette, and this one is called Lula, and this is more of a taupey brown, slightly kind of on the cool side, especially when you compare it to the next shade along, but still rather quite neutral. But if you're looking for a kind of neutral to cool tone transition shade, then this is your guy. And for me, this is kind of a staple shade in every kind of neutral palette. It's your kind of perfect neutral to cool tone transition shade. It provides a nice subtle contour for kind of an easy everyday look. On days where I want to wear minimal makeup but I want a little bit of definition to my eyes, I would just throw on Lula into the crease and just blend it out. And yeah, I've got a nice kind of natural shadowy contour going on in my lips. And as far as matte eyeshadows go, these are a joy to work with. These are really soft, really pigmented, and just really easy to blend and easy to work with, which is what you kind of want in a matte eyeshadow or in any eyeshadow. Then moving along to the second shade in the bottom row, we have Isabel. This is a mid-tone muted orange shade with brown undertones, so whilst it does look quite vivid and quite orange in the pan, it is a bit more muted and subtle when you actually apply it on the lids. It's the perfect companion for a warm smoky eye. I use it as a transition shade in the crease when I'm working a smoky eye. It's also another shade that you can just throw on the lids as an everyday shade, just for a hint of definition and colour on the lids. And for me, I actually like to mix these two shades together. I find that it creates a really nice, not too warm, not too cool, neutral contour shade for the crease. Then moving along, we have the last of the matte shades, and this is called Violetta, and it actually looks more lighter in the pan than it swatches. It's a dark brown with red undertones, so It's quite warm, not too warm. You can actually get away with using this as more of a neutral brown, so it will work well in cool tone looks as well as warm tone looks. And for me, you definitely need a dark brown in the palette as your kind of defining color or your kind of outer V shade to provide that depth and definition and to amp up the smokiness in any look, especially in the absence of a black. And as I said, this actually looks a lot lighter in the pan than it swatches, so it definitely does the job. Then back to the shimmers, we have Fifth Avenue, and this is more of your bright yellow gold. It's definitely a lot more metallic compared to Hollywood. Hollywood is very kind of subtle with a satin finish. This, you definitely have that strong metallic sheen to it. It's a very kind of brightening shade and would work beautifully as an all over the lid shade, as well as like an inner corner highlight. I've actually got a little bit of that in my inner corners today. Yeah, it's just a pretty gold, and another not so unique color, but pretty nonetheless. Then coming up to the penultimate shade of the palette, we have the shade called Bronx, and this is a kind of muted mossy olive green that has kind of some really fine gold shimmer running through it. I'm really pleased that he's added a couple of colors to this mostly neutral palette just to kind of add a little bit more interest, and gives you the choice of adding a bit of color but still wearable color, as these tones are, even though they're described as jewel tones, they're very much muted and still quite versatile and easy to wear. And then finally we have the shade Paris, which is a light kind of bronzy brown shade. Again, it's just another very easy to wear shade. This will kind of suit most skin tones. This is a shade that you can easily wear solo on the lids just as an all over wash of color, or you can team it with a bit more of a darker shade like NYC, or even the dark matte shade Violetta in the outer crease, kind of outer V area, just to kind of smoke it up a little bit and give the look a bit more definition. But like I said, this is just an easy to wear neutral eye shade. I think that's the thing with all of the shades in the palette, is that they're designed to be really versatile. You can wear them solo, each individual eye color by themselves on the lids, or you can easily mix and match the colors together and they won't look out of sync. I think he's done well in choosing the three matte shades that he has done. These colors are everyday neutrals that will work incredibly well with all of the shimmer shades. I call them shimmer shades, but they kind of vary in terms of intensity. Some of the shades are quite subtle with a really soft satin finish. Other shades have more of that strong metallic pearlescent sheen running through them, so are a little bit more intense. Then others kind of sit somewhere in between. But the packaging is nothing to shout about. It's just a black cardboard packaging, but I think they've done the most they can with it, with the kind of gold detailing on the front. It does come with a mirror, so that's great. I just don't understand it when brands release palettes and they don't have a mirror and it's just kind of like a plain cardboard lid. It's just like, well, that's just a waste of space, and why? And I almost forgot, it does actually come with a dual ended brush as well. One side is more of a fluffy brush and the other side is more of a denser flat brush. I have actually used it and I think it's pretty decent in terms of, you know, the brushes that you get free along with palettes. They're not always the best quality, but this does a decent enough job. This retails for $45, which is a bit more pricier than the standard Anastasia Beverly Hills palette. Not sure why, maybe it's the collaboration with Mario. They have done collaborations in the past, but maybe not as high profile as Mario, so that might warrant the increase in price tag. I definitely think it's worth the money. Aside from it being a celebrity collaboration, I think this is a beautiful, beautiful palette, and it's just, like I said, so versatile. The shades are kind of neutral but with a bit of interest to them as well. You've got your jewel tones in there, you've got your matte shades, and you've got your transition, your crease shades, you've you've got your all over lid shades. They can easily be worn solo or just as easily be combined to create incredible looks. Overall, I think it's a great palette. It is a limited edition. I don't know whether it has sold out completely. The last I heard it was available on Sephora.com, Ulta.com and Macy's.com as well. I could just see myself using this palette all the time, and because it's cardboard and lightweight, it's easy to travel with as well. I don't think I'd need anything else. If I was nitpicking, I'd probably say a matte black and possibly a lighter highlighting shade. I would probably swap in a lighter highlighting shade with one of the golds, because you've got two golds there. Even though they've got kind of two different finishes, don't really think you need both of them, and possibly one of the other metallic shades for matte black. But that's me nitpicking. Other than that, I think this palette is perfect. So if by miracle you are able to get your hands on this palette, then I would highly recommend it. Definitely one of my favorite product launches of the year that I've tried. If you enjoyed watching this video, then please give me a thumbs up, and if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, it would make my day if you did. And hopefully I'll see you in my next video. Bye.